Ever since the Jaylen Brown trade, I've been seeing a lot of stuff pop up that's really been bothering me on my timeline. I know it's not supposed to eat at me the way it does, but I really just wanted to come on here and make a video talking about everything I've been seeing, because honestly, it's getting ridiculous. The first tweet that I saw was this one. It was just a tweet that provides some additional details from Underdog, from an article they saw, or a podcast clipping. I'm not sure where it came from. First one, trade not driven by finances. That's fair. Totally. I don't think it had anything to do with finances. I know there was talk that the Celtics were getting a little bit annoyed and struggling a little bit, building a championship team around two players that are both making around $60 million a year, which is fair. But then this tweet here, the Blazers analytics view Brown as a negative player. The Blazers are not in a position to be viewing a player like Jaylen Brown as a negative player. That guy would come in and be the best player on the team, without a doubt. You can't even argue he'd come in and be the best player on that team today. Whatever. It's what another team thought. Teams can think what they want to think when they're going in trade. That's why they didn't aggressively pursue him. But then we got to this one. One current GM doesn't view Brown as a top 50 player in the league. That is absolutely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. I don't know what more he needs to do for people to give him some more respect. The guy averaged 29, 9, and 5 last year. Led this Boston Celtics team to 56 wins in a year where they are without their superstar player in Jason Tatum. He did absolutely everything he needed to. His shot percentages were up. His three-point percentage was up. His effective field goal percentage was up. He was taking 4 more threes a game. He was taking 4 more shots a game as a total. I honestly don't understand what people need to see from him to give him some more respect. There were times where Derek White was shooting horrendously. He was in a major slump, not doing what everyone was expecting him to do, continuing to play like a role player when he absolutely needed to play like an all-star. And then we saw the slump from Peyton Pritchard. He started off strong, but he wasn't strong the whole year. The only consistent player from this team all season long was Jaylen Brown. He was an MVP candidate, number 6 in MVP voting, All-NBA second team. Honestly, should have been All-NBA first team. That's a whole other story. And like I said, led this team to 56 wins in a year where it was supposed to be a gap year, kind of down year type of thing without Jason Tatum. I don't understand how all these GMs can come out and say that he's not a top 50 player. I actually saw the quote that came out about it. I'm just going to find it real quickly here. Here's the quote. Though the idea of him being viewed as the 7th best player on a given team was widely mocked, a recent report that one front office member saw Brown in a way that illuminated the reality that advanced analytics never shine too brightly on Brown's game, which is true. At times he has been a negative player, but at some point we gotta stop looking at the analytics and just do the eye test. This guy is an incredible basketball player. You just gotta watch the game. Honestly, like the analytics side of it is ridiculous at some points, and this is one of those points. Even more pointedly, a current general manager speaking anonymously to comment on the internal team's discussions told The Athletic in the wake of the trade that he doesn't view Brown as a top 50 player in the NBA. Of course he said this anonymously. Of course he did. Nobody will show their face and proudly come out and say they are the one to say this absolutely ridiculous statement. Not a top 50 player in the league? This is a top 15, if not top 10 player in the league, especially last season. There were a ton of questions about what Jaylen Brown was going to be able to do on this team without Jason Tatum and having all the defensive pressure and everyone kind of circling on him doing his thing on the team. He immediately came out and shut all that up. Boston wasn't supposed to be a playoff team this year. They were supposed to be in a gap year, not be that great. They started the season a little bit slow, but after like the first 3 games, they quickly turned it around and became one of the best teams in the league, led by Jaylen Brown. I don't understand why these GMs are saying these things they're saying. Jaylen Brown even came out on his stream or whatever and was talking about how analytics are stupid and they're dumb, all that stuff. I don't remember the exact quote he said, but I fully agree with him. At some point, we got to stop thinking analytically and just watch the damn game. Watch this guy play basketball and you will see he's so much better than all these people are saying he is. But back to this tweet that I had, the Underdog one. Boston questioned whether Brown would buy into re-accepting a smaller role alongside Jason Tatum. If there's anybody that's willing to do that, I'm pretty sure it'd be Jaylen Brown. Not once did he come out and say he didn't want to play in the Celtics. Not once did he come out and request a trade. Not once did he ever come out and complain about his role, especially when Jason Tatum come back. Or even in previous history with Jason Tatum already healthy. He never really questioned what he was doing. He knew what his role in the team was, and he did not let it stop him from doing anything. This guy led them to the NBA championship and won Finals MVP. He was the best player that entire playoff run when Jason Tatum was not stepping up. Jaylen Brown was the consistent factor that entire run. I don't think he has any issues playing second fiddle to Jason Tatum because it's really 1A, 1B. They both have similar stat lines. Jason Tatum scores a little bit more, but that's just because he's taking more shots than Jaylen Brown is. Jaylen Brown was totally fine sitting back, doing his thing because the team was winning. He is probably the best two-way player in the league. Without a doubt. Putting up 28 points and on the other side playing absolutely incredible defense because that's what he wants to do. He wants to win basketball. But everyone wants to come out and say he's not a winning player. Are we serious? Are we serious? This guy is a legit MVP candidate. And now he's going to go to the Sixers and continue to be a legit MVP candidate. His numbers might take a little bit of hit because he's sharing the ball with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. That's totally fine. But he's still going to play winning basketball. He's honestly going to help this team be way better than they ever were. But then last point here, the Celtics thought Brown went off script too often during the playoff series, especially in the loss to the Sixers. Now, I don't want to say Brown went off script. When the starting lineup in Game 7 was Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Ron Harper Jr., Baylor Shireman, and Luka Garza. But sure, Jaylen Brown went off script. It's not like Joe Mazzulla went off script or anything. Ron Harper Jr. in Game 7? Now, don't get me wrong. Ron Harper Jr., good player, good role player, good bench player. Starter in Game 7? I know the team was struggling and they're trying to figure things out. But you have Ron Harper Jr. and Luka Garza and Baylor Shireman on the starting lineup in a game where you had Peyton Pritchard, Neemias Queta, Nikola Vucevic, Sam Hauser, Hugo Gonzalez, who by the way was untouchable in the Giannis sweepstakes, not good enough to start in a Game 7. I don't think Jaylen Brown's the one that went off script here. Not at all. This has really been bothering me because ever since he got traded, it's like Celtics fans and all these GMs and everything are like, oh, we're not too worried about the Sixers because they got Jaylen Brown. He's not a winning player, negative analytic player. What? No. This is Jaylen Brown. All NBA Jaylen Brown. Number 6 in MVP voting Jaylen Brown. You can't just, because a player got traded and was having some issues with the front office, which by the way, never came out that he was having any issues with anybody, by the way. But you can't just come out and start saying these ridiculous things. I mean, it is freedom of speech, but this is the most ridiculous stigma I've ever seen. I even saw a tweet and it was like, Jaylen Brown, who's an NBA champion and Finals MVP, is a negative player, but Ja Morant isn't? Okay, Blazers. Like, what? What are you talking about, Blazers? Ja Morant has not been a positive player in the last 3 years because of his injuries, his suspension, his inability to shoot the ball. But you're scared to trade for Jaylen Brown because you don't think he's a positive player? Come on. Come on. I'm just going to scroll through some of these replies and see what people think. Yeah, everyone's kind of agreeing with me. Not a top 50 player, but ended up 6th in MVP voting. I'm sure that was just a fluke, right? They got a ton of backlash about this trade, and they just started talking. The Celtics just started talking. They started spitballing. They come out and say Peyton Pritchard's the next Jalen Brunson. Like, come on. Don't get me wrong. Peyton Pritchard's a really good player, but the next Jalen Brunson? No. No, he's not. I hope he proves me wrong and becomes the next Jalen Brunson, but no, he's not. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. This is definitely also just damage control from the Celtics trying to justify why they did what they did, because they know what they did was a bonehead trade. Paul George, 2 firsts, 2 seconds. That 2 firsts don't really mean anything, by the way. Like, they definitely made a bonehead move, and they're trying to cover up their tracks by releasing all these ridiculous statements about how Jaylen Brown is a negative player and he went off script, and they didn't know if he was going to be able to buy into a smaller role alongside Jason Tatum. My thoughts might be sounding crazy, not really following and lining up a lot during this video. I'm just trying to get everything off in my head that I have. It's just really been bothering me. I'm a massive Jaylen Brown fan. That guy plays basketball the right way. He gets to his spots. He plays defense. He finds his teammates. He rebounds. He knows what a good shot is. He doesn't put up bad shots. Yes, at times he had to chuck the ball this year, but he was the only person at times producing any kind of good offense. He had to do what he had to do in order to keep the team winning and keep the team competitive. They did have some bad losses, but they weren't entirely on Jaylen Brown. That guy came out every night, worked his ass off, put the ball in the hoop, honestly pretty efficiently. I don't think he had an inefficient year at all. Shot close to 50% from the field, 35% from 3, 80% from the free throw line. What more can you ask from a guy that's putting up 21 shots a game? He's not KD, he's not Steph, he's not going to be a 50, 40, 90 guy, but he's going to do just about everything he can to keep the team afloat, and it's exactly what he did. I know I already talked about this, but in a year that the Celtics essentially were supposed to have a gap year and not be competitive and just kind of do what they needed to do to stay afloat and maybe get a lottery pick, Jaylen Brown said, no, I'm going to take this team to the promised land, and we're going to go into the playoffs and be a favorite. And that's exactly what he did for all 71 games that he played in. Nobody asked him to do this. Nobody needed him to do this. But him for himself wanted to do this to show that he can be a number one option in this league, despite always being in Jason Tatum's shadow his entire career. I'm getting sick of the way people are talking about Jaylen Brown. That man is a good-ass basketball player. You can't just trade the guy away and start creating damage control to make it seem like he's not that good of a basketball player. And then you can't just have all these other GMs coming around saying, oh, we don't think he's that great, don't think he's top 50, he's a negative player. Get your eyes off the spreadsheets and put them on some film. Watch what this guy is doing night in and night out every single game. He's going to get whatever shot he wants. He's going to defend the best player on the other team. He's going to do everything you need to do for a team to win. You can't call this guy not a winning player when he's an NBA champion and a Finals MVP. Every year that he's been in the league, the Celtics have been incredible. I'm just going to quickly pull up what the Celtics records have been since he's gotten in the league. Last year, 56 wins. The year before, 61 wins. The year before that, 64 wins. The year before that, 57 wins. The year before that, 51 wins. They did have that down year right after COVID. It was a weird year. They still ended up going 500 and made the playoffs. Anyway, year before that, 48 wins. The year before that, 49 wins. And then in his rookie year, team of 55 wins. I don't know what else I need to say. This guy's always been a winner. Every team he's been on has won, regardless of who's on the roster. I know there was times where Kyrie Irving was there. There were times where then Jason Tatum came along and started to blow up. He's always been a winning player on a winning team, and you're gonna come out and say that he negatively impacts the team? If he's negatively impacting the team, how is he gonna put up 28 points per game and the team's gonna put up over 50 wins? I've seen guys put up 26, 27 points per game, and the team barely gets to 30 wins. Mostly between 20 and 30. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about and what team I'm talking about. Jaylen Brown's not an empty stats guy. If he was an empty stats guy, this team would have been horrendous this year. Put up 21 shots a game, and the team still won 56 games, but he's a losing player and a negative player? Nah, not with the way some of his teammates are struggling all year long. Heck, they didn't even have a real center. I know Namus Kid was an absolute dog for them all year, but there's a reason they came into the year with no solidified center, and it was him and Luka Garza as the 2 5-man options, because this team did not want to win. But Jaylen Brown said, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure this team wins and we stay successful, because he does not want to lose, because he's not a losing player. I could go on and on ranting about this because seriously, it is really bothering me. I hate the way people are talking about him, especially people in the league that are supposed to be experts on teams and analytics experts. How about we stop being analytical and start doing some eye test stuff? I know I already said that in the video, but I need to emphasize that some more. Just watch his film, watch what he does. Let's stop moving off the spreadsheets and just be some That Boy Nice watchers. You know what I mean? Spreadsheet FC versus That Boy Nice FC, all the Twitter stuff. You gotta stop going into the spreadsheets all the time to determine if a player's good or not. I know I've probably repeated myself a ton of times in this video, but I really just want to get my point across because this is absolutely ridiculous. This stigma around Jaylen Brown needs to stop. Wherever this guy ends up in his NBA career, whether it's Philly for the rest of his career, or if he ends up going somewhere else via trade or free agency or whatever happens, that man is going to win basketball games and he's going to do it at an extremely high level and play at an extremely high level. I think he's going to be one of those all-NBA first, second, third team players for the rest of his career, regardless of where he is, regardless of who he's playing with, because this guy wins, and this guy is an absolute menace on the floor, an absolute animal. A plus player whenever he's on the floor, in my eyes, maybe not analytically, but in my eyes, that guy's impacting winning every time he's on the floor. And that's my last point. I'm leaving it at that.